to Geek Culture Online. I'm your host, Patrick Bolin, and again, we're going to be focusing on the massive groundswelling of WandaVision. I'm again joined with my co-host, Ethan. Hello, Ethan.
Hello, everyone.
And we're just going to pick it up here because we have a lot to unpack. This is episode 5, which is actually V in Roman terms. So have 5 for Vision. And we're just going to jump right in. Well,
And
before,
then and
before
then the two V's is a W.
yeah. So is that why they're going to have 10 episodes? You know.
There you go.
Oh,
Well, and
oh, the
also
10th.
in Roman, and also in Roman letters, the V was also used as U, right?
Ah.
So just saying.
Okay. All right. Well, before we jump into this episode, we're gonna kind of veer off and talk about a trailer that was dropped. With the second, is this the second full one for
Correct.
say the full second trailer for Falcon and Winter Soldier. So tell us all about it.
Okay. Well, so if you happen to watch the Super Bowl on Sunday, whether for the game or for the commercials, of course, one of the big things with the Super Bowl is always commercials,
Mhm.
and the film studios like to roll out big trailers. And of course, in our current situation, we don't have a lot of movies making it to the theaters. So Disney actually dropped a trailer for the upcoming Disney Plus series, Falcon and Winter Soldier. So it was an almost 2 minute trailer. Got to see some more of what's going on with the characters, with both Sam and Bucky. Um, looks really, really good. A lot of spy, and looks like a spy thriller type of series. But also the opening, the kind of the bookend of the trailer, the opening scene and closing scene
Mm.
are the two of them going through some kind of therapy together. Some people online were referring to it as like couples therapy, kind of indicating almost like a buddy cop type of dynamic between Sam and Bucky. Um, but we also see in the clips that are shown, we see the return of Baron Zemo, who of course was the bad guy in Civil War, and he has in his hand his knit purple mask, which will be very much comics accurate once he puts it on. He looks. It sounds as though he's wanting to finish his intent that he had in Civil War to basically wipe out rid the world of superheroes. We see him in front of a Sokovian memorial, so tying back to his storyline from Civil War. We see introduction of U.S. agent at some big uh, ceremony where there's lots of fireworks and all
Mhm.
these people dressed up and everything. But one of the most things that got the most attention was with it. We see both Sam and Bucky using the shield. So
Yes.
we see Sam throwing it, and then Bucky catches it. So does that mean that both of them will be using the shield, or one of them? Well, we don't really know. We'll find out once we see the series. So obviously, there's the possibility that either of them could take on the Captain America mantle. But apparently, also the government is introducing U.S. agent as basically the new Captain America for the country. So lots of things going on, and then also the other person who shows up in the trailer is we see the return of Sharon Carter,
Agent 13.
who is Agent 13, who was of course the niece of Peggy Carter, and she was a Shield agent in Winter Soldier, and she also helped out Cap in at the end of Civil War. So she's still around. Obviously, between what happened after Winter Soldier and then the 5 year gap during the blip, she's still around and still we don't know, is she working with the
But
government, with the FBI, with Sword? Is she on her own? So we
or
don't really
wasn't
know.
she
So
wasn't
we'll
she
find out.
on the run in Civil
She
War?
was
Yeah. So
because she helped Cap with getting the
escape.
guys out of the escape from the floating prison. So, and
Yeah.
of course, after Civil War, going into uh, Infinity War and Endgame, both Falcon and Winter Soldier were on the run. So Winter
Hmm.
Soldier was, of course, hidden away in Wakanda, and Falcon was one of the people who was in the prison, the floating prison that
Yeah.
Cap rescued. So both of them are technically fugitives from because of the Sokovia Accords. So it'll be interesting. Are they still being chased by the government, or because of what they did in Endgame and helping rid the world of Thanos, are they now absolved of their previous crimes? I guess that could be part of the storyline as well as we get into the start of the Falcon and Winter Soldier. So
And this
Falcon and Winter Soldier will be premiering March 19th on Disney Plus
after the conclusion of
of
WandaVision.
WandaVision. Right. So if
Okay.
WandaVision continues with 9 episodes as planned, um, the last episode will be March 5th. There'd be a week off for March 12th, and then March 19th, we'd have Falcon and Winter Soldier. But there were rumors that there may be a 10th episode of WandaVision, which would take us up to Friday, March 12th. And then, boom, the following Friday would be the introduction of Falcon and Winter Soldier.
So
Falcon and
no,
Winter Soldier is going to be 6 episodes.
only six.
So only six. So from March 19th, that'll take us into May. And then supposedly in May is when Loki is going to be premiering. So the Marvel universe is just going to keep on chugging away here.
And they've pushed back Black Widow to the fall.
Oh, have they?
Yes. So
Okay, I haven't seen that.
yeah, and there's
I know there
rumors.
was rumors that it might premiere on Disney Plus instead of just in the theaters,
I think
which
they
I think
should
they
just,
should really do at this point.
yeah, just bite the bullet and throw it out there. They've already proven that streaming movies do make their money. So it
Yeah.
just, yeah, just there's no reason not to do it.
Yeah, what DC did with the Wonder Woman 84, um for the limited release it had in the theaters, it was still number one at the box office. Not big box office compared to what we're used to seeing,
Right.
but it still was number one for a couple of weeks in a row. And then word is that they got, I think, like dozens of millions of views on HBO Max as well. It was one of the top streamed
Yeah.
uh,
They made their money.
items.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
yeah. So the streaming a brand new movie, it's not going to be a loss unless it's like an obscene budget. So it just
right.
yeah, there's no reason not to throw it out. They moved back Bond as well, so that's another story. We'll talk
But
about that when we get to the
but
Bonds.
with but with Black Widow and the other MCU movies, because we've got WandaVision on,
Hmm.
Falcon and Winter Soldier's coming, Loki's coming. They're moving. Phase 4 is here, so
Yeah,
Phase 4 is happening. So Marvel can't really hold those movies back too much longer. You know,
no,
MGM may they could push Bond out to 2022, and it's not connected to anything else. It's not
no.
a big deal. But with the MCU movies, whether it's Black Widow, Eternals, Spider-Man, all of those, Doctor Strange too, that's connected to these shows.
Mhm.
So they're going to have to show them eventually, sooner or later. So
Yeah.
so be on the lookout for Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Which is going to be pretty darn awesome. Now on to our regularly scheduled program. It opens this episode of WandaVision number V opens up with a previously on, and then they go through the whole thing that has happened up to this point, um, where Monica gets thrown out and everything. And then they show the TV screen again in the outside world of the rolling credits on the WandaVision, the TV show, and it's the same names that were on previously. I thought there was going to be a change in there or another hidden message, but there wasn't. And then, but then they kind of do they do a flashback scene where Vision comes back inside the house and asks Wanda what happened to Geraldine, and that scene is different than a previous aired version. There's been three different versions of that scene where Wanda and Geraldine confront each other. Three different
So
versions.
just to clarify, what they showed in the previously on portion
Yeah.
was different from what aired in both episode 3 and in episode 4.
Yes. And each time
Okay.
in episode 3, the dialogue's different. Episode 4, it's different, and this one is different. So if you
Okay.
you go back and watch all three versions. None of them are the same.
Yep. And so then the episode opens up before the credits. We get a scene where there's some interaction before we see the WandaVision credits of the sitcom.
Yes.
The house has changed yet again,
Hmm.
and we've moved from the last time we were in the sitcom world, we were in the 70s. Now we're in the 80s. The
Yes.
70s house looked like the Brady Bunch house. This house looks like the Keaton's home in Family Ties. So it's,
Yes.
again, not identical, not the exact same set, but there's some design elements that are very much similar to what we saw, what was seen on Family Ties. Of course, a big sitcom from the 80s,
Hmm.
in terms of the stairwell, the stained glass, the curtains. All of those are are identical to what's on the set for the house, the Keaton's home in Family Ties.
And
So it opens up with the babies are crying. Wanda's trying to get them to stop crying. Vision comes in carrying, uh, I think it's Billy, right?
right,
He's
right.
carrying Billy. Yep. Um, and it mentions that he
Interesting
tried
point.
to. What's that?
Interesting point. So I did not pay attention, but I would like to find out if Vision's always holding or touching the same kid every single time, and
I
Wanda
think so.
vice versa. So that would be an interesting tie there. Okay, go ahead.
So then they're trying to get the babies to stop crying. They try. She recommends getting the binkies. He gets them. He brings them in like their earrings. They put the binkies in. The babies spit them right out right away, and they're still
Mhm.
crying. Wanda tries using her powers to get them to stop crying, and her powers do not work on the babies. And
No,
I think
no.
that's important to point out that her powers don't work on them.
But just like the stork, she tried twice to make the stork stop. She tried twice here to make the babies stop crying. They didn't, but they kind of calmed down and they were giggling. And she goes, "Why are you laughing?" And he says, "Why won't you do what I want?" Okay, that statement, that one line, is very important, I think.
Yep.
And then
And then who arrives at the house to and
Agnes,
offers to help them, right?
yeah,
And they
here's a,
refer to her as Auntie Agnes.
yeah, she comes in saying, "Here's Auntie Agnes." No, but I forgot about this one line. It says, when Vision and Wanda are going, like, "What are we going to do?" and everything. He says, "Well, maybe we need some help." Ding dong. And she goes, and Agnes walks in and goes, "Here's Auntie Agnes." And it's just, okay, but in the comics, Agnes is the witch is referred to as Aunt
Aunt
Agnes,
Agatha. Right,
Agatha at one time or another.
right. So again, another reference that she may be Agatha Harkness. She also says she has a few tricks up her sleeve. So again, the tricks could allude to her being
Magical.
Agatha Harkness, who is a witch using magic trick. Exactly, how that all connects together.
Yes. And
And then go ahead.
well, no, I was going to say, well, no, go ahead, go ahead.
And then one of the really interesting things that happens is in this scene is that we see the reality starting to crack because Agnes says, "Oh, do we need to take that again? Let's go back to the top of the scene. You want to go
Hmm.
back to the top?" And Vision is completely confused by this. Wanda is looking like, "Stop doing that! Like, like you're gonna blow everything." And then
Hmm.
she says, "You want me to hold the baby? Should we just take that from the top?" So
Yes.
she's obviously it's what we're seeing is that Agnes is aware that this is all kind of not. She's aware that this isn't reality, whether it's an illusion or a dream or they're acting out a sitcom, whatever the case may be. Agnes is in on it, and
Hmm.
she's not treating it as just part of normal reality.
Yeah. She knows that yeah. And then Vision's very concerned, and he pulls one off to the side, and he says, "Didn't you see what I see?" And he says, "Don't be silly. Let Agnes give it a try." And so because and then um, you know, Wanda goes back to Agnes, and they while they're arguing, all of a sudden they don't hear the kids crying anymore,
Right.
and then they
Right.
go
So
looking.
so Wanda kind of deflects to Agnes helping them with the baby as a way to
Yes,
kind of get him off of this topic of what was Agnes talking about.
yes. And then they go look in the crib. The kids are gone.
right? Because they've now all of a sudden grown up.
Yeah. They.
One other thing is that Agnes refers to Ralph again, her
Hmm.
husband.
Oh yeah.
So this is, I think every episode she's been in, she's referred to Ralph, but we still haven't seen Ralph.
No.
So that again, that begs the question: is who could Ralph be? We know from last week that when Monica was sent by the director of SWORD to work with the FBI, it was for a missing persons case,
Hmm.
and someone who was in witness protection in Westview has gone missing. We also saw last week where Agent Wu is writing on the whiteboard, and he mentions that there's
Two.
that Monica and one other person were not accounted for as he's identifying who the different characters in the sitcom are. So
Yeah.
Agnes is never identified, but then there is also a missing person who has not been they haven't seen on the show yet. So could that be Ralph? So could Ralph be the missing person who's in witness protection? One of the other rumors or theories going on around online is that Ralph could be the potential villain for this series from the comics, Mephisto, who is a major Marvel villain who's extremely powerful and could be a
And
major villain if he is introduced.
he can alter reality.
Correct.
Yeah.
And in fact, we know that at least part of the show is based on the House of M storyline, which involved Mephisto altering reality in that series.
Yeah. And Wanda, using her powers to do so.
Right.
And then, but interesting thing is that the kids go from being babies to 5 year olds, and Agnes isn't phased by it. Oh, and she goes,
Right.
and they all freak out when they turn around and see the kids, and then they look at Agnes, and she goes, "Oh, kids, the kids, you can't control them no matter how hard you try." Another line about control, because says, "I
Right.
can't make you do what I want. I want. Why can't? Why won't you do what I want? No matter how." He says, "You kids, you can't control them no matter how hard you try." Here's two lines within the first 10 minutes of the show saying that things cannot be controlled, and then
So
they.
again, perhaps referring to the fact that maybe Agnes is the one helping to control this altered reality, or she's at least aware that it is being controlled by someone.
Yes. And she is, and again, she's not phased by the kids going from babies to 5 year olds, just like how the doctor wasn't phased by all of a sudden, going Wanda going from being slightly pregnant to birth in a day. So
Delivering babies in
yeah,
a day, right?
yeah. So it just
So
people aren't freaked out by any of this.
right now, right after this scene, it moves into the opening credits for this episode of the sitcom,
Mhm.
which has a couple of homages to different 80s sitcoms. The biggest one, again, being Family Ties, as we mentioned. The set looks like the Family Ties home, but the very opening of the opening credits is this black and white picture, and then there's a paintbrush adding the color in, which is exactly what happened with the family on Family Ties.
Mhm.
The font used in the graphics is the same font that was used on the Family Ties opening credits, as they showed like a portrait for each of the family members. The other sitcom that's paid homage to here is Growing Pains by showing each of the characters at different stages of growing up. We even
Mhm.
see a baby Vision, even though Vision was created as a fully grown android.
It's
We
frightening.
see a baby Vision as a baby as a child, but Wanda and the boys are also shown as children and growing. Um,
What they should have done
and
was
then
just shown,
another sit,
shown like a calculator, and then like a Commodore, then Vision.
right. Um, the other sitcom from that era that's made reference to is Full House. There's a scene where Wanda and Vision and the kids are having a picnic out in the park, which is the same thing we would see at the beginning of Full House, where the family was in the park having a picnic. And of course, one of the tie-ins is that Elizabeth Olsen, who plays Wanda, is the younger sister of the Olsen twins, who played the babies on Full House, who grew up to be little girls. So um, uh, definitely, I'm sure it was intentional that they had to include some Full House references with
Oh yes.
Elizabeth being part of the show.
Oh yes, they had to. They really had to. And then after the opening sequence, they cut to reality or outside Westview
Well,
to Monica,
outside of the hexagon,
the hexagon, the hex,
right?
and
So we see Monica is undergoing some tests because she's returned
mhm,
from Westview, and one of the interesting things is they finish her scans, and the sword agent who's scanning her sees that everything is blank.
mhm.
Um, and
She's
then Monica
retake
just
it.
says, and then Monica's like, no, I got to get going, and then she just kind of brushes it aside.
Mhm.
So could that be a reference to the fact that Monica has her powers? Because of course in the comics she's
Photon.
gone by different names, Photon, Captain Marvel, a couple of different names, but she's has energy in her as a super being. So could that be why her scans are not showing normal, because you
Not
know
real.
she has she's not real. She's a manifestation of energy. Or it could be a reference to the fact that her body was altered when she went into the Westview
Okay.
hexagon and pulled out. So
So therefore,
so that's
wow, interesting. I didn't make the connection that she was altered because of being in there, which makes
right.
sense.
Because because they get right into that, because they talk about how um like how the drone was turned and was the form of the drone was changed into the helicopter once it entered into Westview. And then Monica points out about her clothes she was wearing,
Hmm.
how they were real, and that and she shoots at her clothes, and the bullets bounce off because the clothes was it 87% Kevlar,
Yes.
because of course she was wearing a Kevlar vest with her sword uniform when she got sucked in. So the clothes she was wearing were altered to look like other clothes, but it was still the material, the same atoms that were reformed into different clothing.
Yes. 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 And so, oh, and then they go have she gets dressed and they go and have this big meeting with everybody and with the director and everything, and that the director stresses that there's thousands of people in Westview that are victims, and it's just like, well, didn't they say at the beginning of all of this that Westview didn't exist and there was an Eastview but not a Westview? So where are all these thousands of people coming from?
Well, but the that's what the police officer said to Monica and to Agent Wu.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, when the director gave Monica the assignment to work with Wu and the FBI, they said they had somebody lost in witness protection in Westview.
Okay.
So they and remember, when she got off the freeway, there
It
was
was that sign.
an exit that said Westview. So I think Westview is a real town. It's
Mm-hmm.
just that as part of the altered reality, some of the people around there were basically, their memories of Westview may have been wiped out.
Okay. Well, and then they go through all the technical aspects. It's like Wanda was born in 1989. I don't know if that 1989 means anything, if there were any major
Well,
issues
the one
in any comic books that
well
happened in '89.
well the one thing I read is that Elizabeth Olsen was born in 1989, so it makes
They're matching the
Wanda the
age.
exact same age as that, they matching the age. So there are two numbers that come up as they're going through the video of Wanda's history.
Hmm.
So when they show some of the reference to the Sokovia attacks, it says satellite number 113, which it's mentioned that could be a reference to Avengers issue 113.
Hmm.
And the cover of Avengers issue 113 has Wanda and Vision front and center in the cover, along with the rest of the Avengers. And Wanda is upset that someone has killed Vision, and saying that she's going to make the world pay for Vision's death, which obviously could very easily tie into what we're seeing in the storyline here with WandaVision. And then a little bit later, there's another graphic that shows A113, which is a common Easter egg for the Pixar films. And it refers to a classroom in the graphic design and animation classes at the California Institute of the Arts, where a lot of the Pixar animators had taken classes. So
Pixar
that
is
number
part of
shows up
Disney.
and Pixar's part of Disney, as is Marvel's, and this is on Disney Plus. So it's just maybe a little tip of the hat to Pixar, adding that 113 in there.
And they also show he says the director goes I'm going to show you a video that happened 9 days ago, so now we have a timeline of what happens, even though that Monica's been back for 3 weeks, and then she was sent here 2 or 3 days ago. 6 days before that, this video happened where they show Wanda breaking into a sword facility and stealing
It was Sword headquarters, actually.
that headquarters and stealing Vision's body. And the video in there showed a dismantled Vision's body, which happened in the West
Right.
Coast Avengers. Uh, Vision's been died several times in the comics. One time after he supposedly died, he was dismantled, and Wanda walked in on him spread all over a table like the insides of a computer, and she completely freaks out, and then she forces them to put him back together, and that's when he became grayish and ghost-like or spirit-like or a vision. um,
Hmm.
so therefore that's kind of like how we've seen him in the last episode when they showed him dead and he's like one grayish color. That's kind of like what
Right.
happened in the comic book. So they show her taking his body and leaving. And so we have
Right.
a timeline, and when this started was 9 days after this
Previous.
previously. And
Right.
the
And the director mentions that she stole his body and resurrected him,
yes.
which Agent Wu points out is in direct violation of 36B of the Sokovia Accords, and then it's also pointed out that it's also in violation of a living will that the Vision had,
Hmm.
not asking that he not be resurrected if he should be terminated. So
Or and
very
used as a
interesting,
weapon. Yeah,
and used
but
as a weapon. So
so why would they have this written into the accord?
the Sokovia,
Um, because it's just like so far during um, uh, Age of Ultron, the Infinity uh, Gauntlet, and Endgame, nobody has come back from the dead. So why would they have this written in there saying like, no, we're this is no matter what happens, we're not bringing anybody back,
or was it specifically for Vision?
or is it because of Coulson?
Mm, don't
Because
know.
because in Avengers, Coulson dies, but anybody that's watched Shield, he was brought back. So did they put that in there saying like, no, we're not going to bring anybody back because we've seen the headaches. So it
Yeah.
just yeah.
Oh, what one other thing before they show the video of her breaking into Sword, when they're going over her background and history, the director asks Agent Wu, "Does Maximov have an alias? No funny nickname?" And he says, "No, sir, not a one." So that's a reference to the fact that in the comics, Wanda is called the Scarlet Witch. That's her superhero nickname.
Mhm.
But so far in the MCU, she has never been referred to as the Scarlet Witch. She's only been Wanda.
Yeah, and but she's always worn uh, Scarlet Witch's colors or been
The
implied to
Red.
it, the red, and her costume is very much like how like, the House of M and all those the later the most recent iterations of the Scarlet Witch's costumes is very much like what you've seen in the movies, and they cut back to the show or inside. Oh, and
The sitcom.
Darcy, yeah, the sitcom. Darcy refers to the dome on the city as the hex
And
because it's
they
hex
also refer to it as the Maximov anomaly.
because they're blaming Wanda.
Right. They're clearly, their theory is that Wanda has created this altered reality, and she's the one controlling everything.
Mm.
But Agent Wu points out that that would be a big jump in what she's shown of her powers thus far. That this would be way beyond anything she's shown in her powers, and that leads to a discussion where they talk about her Well, she was one of the only ones who took on Thanos, and she, was able to get to him. And then Darcy says, "Oh well, Captain Marvel was too." And interestingly, we see Monica give kind of frowns up when Captain Marvel's name is mentioned, which is interesting
Yeah.
because the last time we saw Monica before this series, she was a young girl in the
Mhm.
'90s in the Captain Marvel movie, and in that point, Captain Marvel was someone she looked up to and her mom's best friend and kind of like a family member to her. But something has happened in those 25 or so years in between before the blip that has led her to maybe not view Captain Marvel as favorably. So we don't know what that's about. Maybe we'll find out as the series progresses,
Or in Captain Marvel too.
or in Captain Marvel 2, because we do know that Monica is going to be in Captain Marvel 2. So,
Yeah, and then
or perhaps in the Miss Marvel MCU Disney Plus series that will happen before Captain Marvel 2 comes out. So
yeah, and because nothing going forward is in chronological order. Okay.
right,
And then they cut to the show where the two kids are at the kitchen counter because they're scrubbing a dog in the sink. Wanda comes in, goes like, "What's going on here?" And he goes, "Well, here's a dog. Can we keep it?" And she's like, "Sure." Um, and Wanda goes, um, "Taking on a living thing is a big responsibility." And then Vision comes in, and he's like, "Oh, he says we can't really do this and everything." And he says, and then Wanda and Vision kind of agree that you're too young, you're 5-year-olds, you can't take care of it. If you were more like 10, we could see taking on a dog. The kids look at each other and they age
and then
themselves
they turned to 10 years. So and it's interesting. So they went from newborns to 5, and then
uh,
5 to 10. So there are these 5-year jumps. It's not 1 or 2 years. It's exactly 5 years each time.
which is
So
one
very
five
interesting.
ten. So I don't know if that means anything.
Or is it 5 years because of the 5-year gap with the blip? Could that be tied in some kind of way?
I didn't make that connection until you said that. Okay, all right. Well,
I
there's
didn't
that
either
there
until I
too.
was thinking of it just now.
Okay, see. Then they're like, okay, well, we boxed ourselves into a corner. Now that we're going to have to agree to keep the dog. And Vision's like, well, and then Agnes just walks in the door with the dog house, and Vision goes, um, and he says,
So again, how did she know? How did she know they had a dog?
mhm,
And again, she's not phased by the fact that this morning they were babies. When she
mhm.
left, they were 5, and now they're 10, and none of that phases her one bit.
No, no, no. And she stresses that she claimed that she heard the dog barking through her kitchen window.
Right.
Okay, well, uh, so far, Agnes has had the perfect dinner for them, because
Right. She showed up. She showed up. She should not have. There was no reason for her to know that Wanda didn't have anything for dinner, and she shows up with dinner,
complete
and she
dinner.
just so happens to have a full course gourmet dinner at her home,
Yes, a spare one that she just happened
a
to
spare one
be
that
able
she
to
can
grab
just
it.
laying around.
Yeah, just grab it and run out the door with it. And here she is with a doghouse with happens to be the size that's needed for this dog.
Right.
Yeah, and Vision's going like, wait a minute, why did she know exactly what we needed here? And then they're like, what are we going to call him? And the dog is playing around, and they wanted to call the dog Sniffly, and the dog is playing with a wall socket, and it sparks off. Nobody's worried about that. Like, the house is burning; it could be burning down or whatever. They call it Sparky. This
Yep.
refers to the 12-issue miniseries Vision because there was a dog in that comic and they called it Sparky. So there's that. And then Wanda's like, okay, well, that's been settled. And Wanda makes a collar appear, apparently, with the dog's name, Sparky, on it in front of Agnes, and Vision's freaking out, going like, you can't do this in front of her. And she goes, he goes, why not? He says, I'm tired of hiding my powers. I'm telling you, he says, he says, and also she doesn't seem to be phased by this. And he says, maybe you shouldn't have to hide either. And he's like, and then Vision's like, what are you not telling me? and it just so and then it cuts to the outside of where flipping page for the notes. Um, oh well, yeah, we kind of jumped the gun because this is where the scene where Monica is talking about her clothes being 87% Kevlar and saying that Wanda is rewriting reality, and Darcy goes permanently because
Hmm.
Darcy is questioning that this is Wanda because she doesn't have that type of powers. And
Right.
then and then that cuts to Vision being at the office, and they have computers. It's
Yep.
just
Oh,
this.
before that though, don't we get the commercial,
Um,
or is the
no,
commercial after
that's
that?
coming on after. Um,
Oh, after the scene in the office.
no, this is actually comes out after she leaves the dome, and then it cuts
Okay.
to
Okay.
yeah, yeah. We're we're getting near the end here, guys. Just stay with us. This episode is just so jammed packed full of things. And then Vision's at the office and they're playing with Commodore computers, and it's just like, and they're like, this is a newfangled thing. And then and Norm makes a reference to a '90s thing, Cowabunga, which could be late '80s because of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Right.
But
Um,
I'm
and
thinking
then
it's
they talk about getting email on the computer.
yes,
And Norm is talking about it. Well, who's going to deliver it? I need a letter opener. So
yes.
he's obviously not familiar with what email is. And then when they open the email, what do they see on the screen?
Oh my God. They well, Vision turns the computer on because she goes and Norm goes like, "You really know how to talk to computers," and he ignores that. And it shows it booting up, and it shows that it's a 64 RAM system. And it shows the on the screen it shows 64 RAM system, 38911 basic bytes free ready. 38911. So I can't find any reference about that. But the email itself says, quote unquote, Dr. Darcy Lewis findings regarding Maximoff anomaly, high levels of radiation present at perimeters, effect on Westview residents unknown. Please advise. But as Vision's starting to read this out loud, everybody in the office starts droning out and reads the same thing on their screens at the same time, very mechanically. And then Vision's like freaking out, and then Norm says, "It's it says this is Norm's Vision's worried about Norm, and Vision touches the computer, which makes it like jolt, and then he
Hmm.
brings Norm out of this state, and Norm freaks out. And it's just like takes him out of the trance, and he says, "Please help me. How long has it been? You have to stop her. She's in my
Right.
head. Make her stop." And then he's like, "I got to call my sister. My dad's sick." And he starts rambling, ruffling through the drawers of his desk, trying to find his phone. So he knows that he's not in the '80s. And then Vision puts him
Right.
back into the trance. And then he goes like, and he says, "Oh, isn't that funny? It's a joke. None of this is real."
Hmm. So Vision is starting to figure out that something, first of all, he's been noticing little glitches in the show, and now he makes this discovery with Norm. So he's starting to realize that somebody is altering reality, and he's of course assuming that it's Wanda who's doing it, especially since Norm said she.
Yeah.
He's assuming it's Wanda, but we still don't know for sure if it's her or not.
No, no,
Again,
no,
that's
no.
the assumption that the government is making as well. But again, we don't know that she's the one doing it.
No, and here's the important part. They cut back to Wanda's house, Wanda and Vision's house, and the kids are playing with the dog. They're teaching him tricks and stuff. And the kids are like, "Oh, we want to show Dad." And Wanda goes, "Dad's not here." He goes, "Where is he?" He says, "He's at the office." And the kids go like, "Oh, well, it's Saturday." And she goes, no, it wasn't. It's Monday. She goes, no. The kids go, no, it's Saturday. And he's, well, he had to go there for emergency. And he says, why? And he says, he needed a distraction. And the
Hmm.
kids go, from what? From us? She goes, no, no. Your dad and I sometimes are not on the same page, and that's I didn't write down the rest of it, and that's something, something, something. Um, okay, and I can't read my own writing now. Oh yeah, and then the kids ask. He says, well, they ask, do you have a brother? Uh, yeah, he's far from here. She doesn't say that he's dead like she did with Geraldine. He says, no, he's far from here, and I miss him.
Well, she never said it with Geraldine. Geraldine was the one who said, "Oh, that's right. He was killed by Ultron,"
She
and
never said
that's
Wanda. Wanda never said that.
Wanda never said it, and that's when Wanda got upset. Was when Geraldine mentioned that.
Okay. Okay. And then they cut to the drone, and the drone's showing it it's like having a hard signal. And then the drone flies over the water tower we've seen in the post credits and all the other episodes. Now every single image that's in the digital images at the end of the episodes have now been shown. The water tower was the last piece. Now we've seen that.
Oh,
So
they did also show the water tower in the opening credits. So the shot where they were having the picnic in front of the gazebo, the
uh-huh.
water tower was in the background.
Okay. So now all the images in the credits have been shown. So what are they going to show going forward? Now there's nothing left hidden. And
Hmm.
then the directors, they Wanda is actually not Wanda. Monica is actually driving the drone in there, and then the kids are going. Then the dog goes up to the door, and the dog's barking and stuff, and they're like, she's Sparky's scared, and Wanda goes outside and sees the drone. The drone sees her, and Monica loses control of the drone, and the director says, "Take the shot," and then the monitor goes out, but you hear a missile launch.
Yep. And then also, Darcy notices that Wanda is not showing the drone on the show, and
It's
she talks
Fanatica.
about how how uh, how she's also jump cut some of the scenes and cut out things that she
Mhm.
doesn't want people to see on the show or on the broadcast.
Darcy's
So
blaming
Darcy's
Wanda.
starting to notice that.
Well,
What's that?
Darcy is blaming Wanda, but is it Wanda that's editing the show?
Right. She's assuming it because that's their theory, working theory is that Wanda is the one who's altering reality.
Yes. And
Yeah.
then they go like there's a perimeter breach, and so everybody rushes outside to the wall of the digital X, and they show Wanda coming out and she's
Yep.
different.
She's different. Well, she's first of all herself. She's not in, like any of her sitcom wardrobe.
Mhm.
And then, but she's also speaking with her Sokovian accent, which I saw was pointed out online. We really have not heard her accent since the first film she was in, which was Age of Ultron. So her and Pietro had their accents there, but then as we saw her showing up in the other films in Civil War, Infinity War, Endgame, she had a more Americanized accent. So was that because she was training with the Avengers and getting adjusted to, losing
Western
her
life.
accent, Western life, but now because she's upset, she's kind of reverting back to her natural tongue, or is it because there've been blocks in her memory or her reality is being altered? We definitely hear the accent in the dialogue that she gives towards the confronting the sword agents right outside of the perimeter.
And she's wearing her costume or her outfit that she wore in Endgame.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So it's
Um,
yeah.
and you pointed out, and I saw this online as well, that the her movements and interaction with the sword agents is mirrors a scene that Magneto had in one of the X-Men films where he's confronting some
The policeman.
government or military
Yeah, yeah,
policemen,
because
right? So
he makes all the police point their guns at each other, and she uses her stuff to her hex powers to point all the guns at the
at
director.
the
But
director.
her
Hmm.
swooping movements mirror Magneto's exactly when she turns around and goes back into the hex. Because he says, "What
And
do
that
you?" She says, "What do you want?" And he says, "We know that you're causing this," and he says, "We need you to stop this." He says, "I have all that I want, and nobody will take that away from me again." And so again, so is that because first her parents, Petro, Vision. So it's just, she's saying that, this is like, she got whatever she wants, and she's agreeing to this alternate reality, and she knows it's an alternate reality because she left and then goes back in. So is this
Well, and
like,
she also tells them to leave her home, leave her home alone.
yes,
So she refers to what's going on in Westview as basically her home. So that's so she definitely wants to be there, wants to be to see she wants them to stay away from
kind of
her home reality. So
kind of like that guy in the Matrix who was one of the agents, and he makes a deal
right,
with her to like, oh no, I like it better in the Matrix because I got steak and all this other stuff. So I
right.
made a
And
deal
he
with
wants
people
his
about that.
memory wiped out.
So he doesn't
Right,
remember any of that. So now she likes
right.
what she has, even though she knows it's fake. That's what she wants. She's agreeing to this. So does that mean that she know that? Well, we're going to reveal something else, but keep that piece in mind. Then this cuts to the new commercial,
Right.
and the
And so
commercial.
the new go ahead.
No, no, I was going to say the opening line of the commercial is "You got a mess." Then it shows this housewife.
Right. And it's basically a paper towel commercial. It's kind of like
Bounty.
dozens of paper towel commercials we've all seen where she's she's got the brand that's being advertised and the leading brand that's not as effective. And in this case, it's Lagos brand,
Mm-hmm.
and it says the tagline is Lagos for when you make a mess you didn't mean to. And this is referring to the incident in Civil War, which happens in Lagos, Nigeria, where Wanda inadvertently contains the explosion and blows up the building, but inadvertently kills innocent people when the bomb goes off. Um, so it's kind of the mess that she made in Lagos,
Mm-hmm.
and it also shows the housewife soaking up this red juice with the towel, and her hands are red, sort of like she has blood on her hands, which may be how Wanda felt after the disaster in Lagos. And of course, that was one of the things that she felt bad about what happened there.
Mm-hmm.
When we see that in Civil War, where it's obviously something that bothered her, and of course, it was one of the things that led to the creation of the Sokovia Accords. Was what happened in
Yeah.
Lagos. That was kind of like the last straw after what happened in Sokovia and in the Battle of New York. They said, well, you know what? Basically, you guys are destroying stuff, so we need to put you in check. So
And also, if you notice, it's the same actor that was in the watch commercial and
it's
here.
it's it's been the same two actors in each commercial for every episode.
So what's the connection there? It was pointed out to me online that this is actually Wanda's parents.
Yeah, that's one of the theories I've seen online. Is that it
Yeah,
could
and
be
I'm like,
Wanda's parents.
I don't know. Uh, then the
Now
last.
that brings me back to the scene where she was mirroring Magneto. That's of course significant because in the comics, Magneto was her
Her
father,
father, because yeah,
right?
she.
Her and Quicksilver's father.
Yes, interesting.
Hmm.
Interesting. And then the last line of the commercial is, like you said, what when you make a mess that you didn't mean to, then it cuts right back to the show. We're back in the show,
Right,
and the kids and Wanda are walking down the street looking for their dog, because somehow or other the dog is escaped. I guess from the time the explosion went, the missile was launched to her leaving the town, and the town is in daylight. Outside, it's nighttime.
It was nighttime, exactly. When she came out of the perimeter, it was nighttime.
Yeah,
But
so there's an
the show is
entirely
happening in
reality.
daytime.
Yeah, so it just
Hmm.
so how much and then they pass the mail carrier who says, and they're like, and he says like, we're looking for our dog, and he says, oh, your mom won't let him get far.
Right.
Okay.
And he says something like that she always fixes everything.
Yes. And it's just like, if you think about it, the doctor had to leave on vacation in a car that is impossible to get to. He couldn't leave. He agreed that he can't leave. Now the mail carrier is saying that, you can't get far anyway. So everybody kind of knows that, it's like the Truman Show. You can't leave.
Right.
And then they find Agnes, who has the dog wrapped up in a towel because the dog is dead.
Right. And then they say something again uh, about the kids not being old enough to deal with it, but then she tells
Oh,
them,
yeah. He says, oh, and another thing is that the dog does die in the miniseries, the Vision miniseries,
okay,
and Vision brings him back. Um, because he built in the comic book in this miniseries, the Vision, it's a total issue, a maxi series. Vision builds a wife and builds kids, and then they try to live in the suburbs like Wanda's doing right now, and there's a massive struggle because everybody knows that he's Vision. They're not hiding it, and then
right,
in the comic books, a neighbor's dog dies. Vision brings him back, and it's Sparky now, and it becomes the Vision's family dog. Um, and the kids are like freaking out, and they look at each other, and Wanda stops him, and he says, "You're not going to, he says, um, you're not going to age out of this." And he says, "The urge to run from he says, death is, she goes, the urge to run from these feelings are strong." And he says, "You can't run from death." And the kids ask, say, "Fix this, mom. Fix Sparky. Bring back Sparky from
you
being dead."
they say you can fix anything, mom, fix the dead.
Yes. And Agnes freaks out and looks at Wanda and says, "You can do that?"
Right. Like she doesn't realize she doesn't as far as Agnes is concerned, that's not part of Wanda's powers.
Right. And then Wanda explains to the kids, there are rules in life. Rushing aging because it's convenient, we can't do that. We can't reverse death. Some things are forever.
Hmm.
So that is, that's very significant. And then Vision comes in and he finds, this is happening. And then they cut to him coming in from the backyard, and Vision and Wanda are there, and they're talking and stuff. And he says, and then he confronts Wanda about Norm. He says, I brought him out, and he's in pain. Everybody's in pain. He says, you can't continue doing this, Wanda. He thinks Wanda's responsible for this now. Everybody's turning
And
against
he also says something about how she can't control him like she was doing Norm
Yes, you can't
or something
control.
like that, right?
Yeah, you can't control me as you controlled them. And she goes, I can't I? And he says, can't I? All of this is for us, so let me handle this.
And then again, getting back to not showing everything on the show, when they start having this argument, the credits start rolling, and they're rolling by quickly, as if like whoever's controlling the show, whether it's Wanda or someone else, wants to kind of get this. Let's get
Wind
out of
it up.
this. We don't want to have this. Wind it up, right?
Yeah, wind this up, and then they leave the kitchen, and the credits are gone, but they're continuing. This is like not. This is the part that's not
And it's back
airing.
full screen
Yes,
because it's back to full screen too. So
this
it's
point.
it's not the small screen, right?
Yeah, so this part is not being aired, or Darcy and the rest of the gang are not seeing this. This is just what's happening inside the house. And he says, and Vision goes, says, "What is outside of Westview?" And Wanda goes, "You don't want to know." He says, "You don't want you don't want to make." And Vision goes, "You don't want to make this decision for me, Wanda. You have never talked to me like this before, Vision. Before Before what? I can't remember my life. Before Westview, I don't know who I am. He has no memory
and,
except for when WandaVision started.
and then also when they're having their argument, Wanda slips again into her Sokovian accent, so that
Yes,
it's
I forgot
again
about
that
that.
she's when she's pulling away from the this fantasy reality and kind of slipping back into reality, she slips back into the accent. And so then they start to confront each other. They both levitate off the ground. Looks like they're about to fight.
Yes.
And what happens?
Oh, one is says he goes and it says that's when he says I can't remember my life, I don't know who I am. And then Wanda it says, you are my husband, you are Tommy and Billy's father, isn't that enough? And he says and then then they've calmed down, they've chilled out, and then Vision goes, why aren't there any other children? He says, every time I leave for the office in the morning, I walk past the park and there's nobody playing on on the swing set. There's nobody there. And he says, and he goes, what's going on, Wanda? And she goes, she's completely deflated. She's sitting on the couch, and I says, do you think I am controlling everything? So going back to what was before, where like Norm says she, now she's saying, do you think I'm controlling everything? So there is something else going on, because
At
Darcy
work.
said,
Hmm.
because Darcy says, it says, it pointed out that, oh, she's permanently changing reality. Norm, says, she, now Wanda is saying, I'm not controlling everything. So there is something else in play, and we now know it's a she.
Right. And then
Oh,
with
and
him
she also,
asking about
she has one other line. I don't know how any of this got started in the first place.
mhm. Now, the one thing I was going to point out, so with Vision pointing out how they don't see any other children, if you think back to episode 2 when they were doing the fundraiser, they kept talking about it was for the children,
Or
for the
the
children, for the children. They kept saying that over and over again, but there are no children. So that's very interesting to say the least.
and then
And so
the
then
doorbell rings.
doorbell rings, and who do we see at the door?
It cuts to a shot behind the door, and here's an interesting thing: is now this is being broadcasted again, because
Right.
the credits rolled, the confrontation happened, then it cuts to Darcy watching it, and she sees what we're seeing is this gray haired guy at the door, and I went, oh my god, it's Captain America. No, it's not. It's Petro.
It's Pietro, but it's not Pietro from Avengers Age of Ultron. It's not the actor who played him in Avengers Age of Ultron. It's Evan Peters who plays Quicksilver in the X-Men franchise. So same character, two different movie franchises. So
Yes.
this is the other Quicksilver, if you will.
Yes.
And he even says to Wanda, what does he say? Um,
um, oh yeah, this is
long lost bro going to squeeze his stinking sister to death or what?
yes. So
To let
all of
her
a
know that
sudden,
he is Petro.
yes. And why was he lost? Yes, and then on top of this, now we have the MCU and the X-Men universe crashing together.
I mean,
So they're
possibly, possibly, because there is some speculation online. He could be the Quicksilver from the X Men universe, or he could be someone else in Westview. He could be another person in Westview who's playing the role of
of,
Pietro.
and Darcy says Petro has been
She
recasted.
recast Pietro. Yeah,
Yes.
she recast Petro.
So
So
because everybody knows that her brother's dead, well, up to this point, who know, because the reverse snap from Hulk wouldn't have brought him back because he was dead before this. That's why Vision wasn't returned, because he was dead before the snap, the reverse snap. So therefore, he couldn't have been brought back. He's being
right.
recasted. So all of a sudden, our entire set of reality has been flipped on its head. And then it goes to the regular credits. The zooming into Visions is a concerned Vision look, because at the beginning, the first three episodes, it was just Vision's face, and then the fourth one was the dead Vision's face. Now this one is the
Right.
concerned, worried Vision, and they go through the whole thing of showing the digital rose, the water tower, the bandstand, all the same thing.
The
Everything's exactly the
butterflies,
same.
the
The butterflies,
headband, the
the headband, the both headbands, the rings, the whole thing is exactly identical except for the face, the Vision that we see at the beginning is different. So um, where where do we stand with this? We know that Wanda is aware that this isn't real. She wants it to be real.
Mhm.
They, the director and everybody at Sword thinks they saw Wanda
The-
steal Vision's body. They
right.
think that because they have videotape of her doing this, it wasn't really her. They know that we know that Norm says she. We didn't find out who the she is. Everybody in town seems to think that they can't leave or they're being controlled. Agnes is completely nonplussed about Wanda and
Every
using her powers. Yeah, she's just like taking everything in stride, like she expects it to be. She broke
but she seems
character.
but she seems to be in on whatever is happening. She
Yes,
knows that something is going on.
she is not on the board on Wu's board.
Well, she's on the board, but she does not have
An
an
ID.
identity or a sword license attached to her license number, whereas everyone else has a sword license number attached to them.
And we know that Ralph is the only other person we have not physically seen. The town has no kids and no Ralph.
Right.
We know that it's hexagon shaped. We know that it's digital because we've seen it. The
We've
digital
seen the
pattern is right there. So it's tech.
but it's
Yeah.
tech that's altering reality.
Altering reality to the point when it leaves the dome, it stays altered.
Such as Monica's clothing, her Geraldine costume.
So it's a permanent change, but Wanda left and she was in her old costume. Okay,
Mm.
so we have all the pieces. It's just that I think out of these 5 episodes, the pieces are there. It just we need to take all the breadcrumbs and all the Easter eggs and line them up, and that's going to tell us what's going to happen. I think this next one is going to be even worse than this one. It's just going to be completely mind blowing. I'm
Well,
speculating.
if you think about it, we're with 9 episodes planned.
Mhm,
This episode was the midpoint. There's 5 is exactly in the middle of the 9. So
mhm.
there's 4 more episodes to go. So
And
we're
they said
on
this.
the kind of the downward half.
They also said this is like in 3 parts. The first 3 set it up. The
Mm-hmm.
next 3 were supposed to be whatever it is, and then the last 3 are the conclusion. So it just we're right smack dab in the middle of all this, and we still don't know who's responsible for all this. We know it's tech. We know it's a
But
she, and that's it. That's all we know.
but they have said that all the questions will be answered by the end of the series. So we'll
Okay.
find out what's going on, all
There's,
of the stuff.
they also said that about Lost, and we know all what happened with that one.
Well, I think Marvel has a little bit better track record. So
Yeah, but this is killing me. I just
oh,
I'm going to stick with it, saying that Alpha Flight's going to swoop in at the very last second, save everybody, and that it's Kang is the responsible for this.
Um, by the way, one thing I did see, you mentioned the scene where Wanda goes and gets Vision's body. One thing I saw online is that that was a deleted scene from Endgame. That they actually filmed part of that at least during the filming of Endgame, but
Really,
then they decided not to include it in Endgame. They felt it didn't fit the tone, but they took that footage and recycled it for this show.
Now, and one other number I forgot about was the 80s drone that was flying in there to confront Wanda. It was 346. So that there was very few numbers in this episode, but the ones there probably mean something. What they are.
Well, we covered the 113 and the A113 and what
Yes.
those could potentially mean. So,
So yeah.
all right.
So so there
All
we.
right. So where do we go next?
You just I yeah. I have.
Looking at the trailer, there were some we know I think probably this next episode is where we have the Halloween storyline where they're in the Halloween costumes dressed up like the comic
The version
costumes of Wanda and Vision.
with the.
And that was of course with the scene where Agnes where he where Vision asks her, are you dead? And she says, why? Because you are, or something like that. So, and she's dressed up as a witch.
Yes.
And then there was also a shot of Vision starting to break through the
Oh,
perimeter of the field. So, I think some of that is what we're going to see next week. So,
it's
should
just
be another good episode.
yeah, and it's just and do you have any speculations? Do you have any ideas or anything that you think that is that besides Alpha Flight and Hang?
So I think that Agnes has something to do with it. She could be Agatha Harkness
Okay.
and using some magic to involve, but then I think there's got to be somebody else because, like you say, it's not pure magic because there is a tech aspect to it. So someone else is involved, and there have been a lot of clues that perhaps Mephisto is involved as well. So we don't know.
But he's
Um,
not tech.
Yet to be seen. Right.
Yeah, but okay. Um, Write and review and subscribe to this. Put your comments below, and put your own theories in there. Go to the webpage. Your Geek Culture. I messed that up again.
That's
Geekculture.online. Yeah, I'm
online.
jumping ahead
That's
again
the
there. Yeah,
website.
yeah. Geekculture.online, not .com, .online. You can also reach us at on our Twitter at Your Geek Culture. But please
And
rate,
then
review, and
Facebook and Instagram are Geek Culture Online, right?
yes, exactly. And so the
Okay.
more you rate and review us, the higher we get in the ratings, and are able to keep the lights on. So
All
it's
right.
very important for you guys to do that. But again, I thank you so much for putting up with this. This is pretty amazing. We're going to see where this goes. But in the meantime, I'm Patrick.
I'm Ethan.
Have a good one.
All right. See you next week.
Thank you for listening to our latest episode. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. You can reach us on Facebook at Geek Culture Online and on Twitter at Your Geek Culture. Until next time, I'm your host, Patrick Pohl.